15-year age advantage for Dawson. Also a 3-inch height advantage for Dawson, who claims he's 6'3". We measured him at 6'2". Arm length advantage of 1 inch measured from the armpit to the end of the fist. Dawson weighed in right at the light heavyweight limit. Johnson was a pound and a half under after all that work with Lucien Boutet. And tonight, Dawson has gone all the way up to 191 and Johnson to 189. So they enter the ring functionally as cruiserweights. CompuBox numbers, Max, and as we look at these numbers from the first fight, it's important to remember that boxing matches are scored round by round and not in total.
Right, although there is a strong positive correlation I've noticed between the guy who lands the most punches and the guy who gets the decision. In this case, Johnson landed a lot of those shots in the last 3 rounds. He concentrated a lot of those shots in several rounds towards the end of the fight. Dawson, many people, including all the judges, felt that he did more damage throughout more of the rounds.
All 3 scores were 116, 112, meaning all 3 judges in Florida felt that Dawson had won 8 rounds. Nevertheless, Johnson says it was a robbery. Rules of the bout with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
The bad Chad Dawson-Glen Johnson fight is scheduled for 12 rounds using the unified rules of the Association of Boxing Commissions. There is no 3 knockdown rule. Only the referee can stop the fight. A case occurs caused by an accidental headbutt. We go to the scorecards after 4 rounds have been completed, and you cannot be saved by the bell at any round, including the 12th and final round. Jim.
Here comes Glen Johnson, and Emmanuel Stewart. We learned in the feature piece that Johnson concentrated all of his sparring for the fight with one sparring partner, a star fighter from French Canada, Lucien Boutet, originally born in Romania, the darling of French Canada. Like Dawson, he is a long southpaw with a good jab. Is it a good idea to have done all his sparring with one sparring partner?
I think it's a great idea if you could get somebody like Lucien Boutet. That's what really was so effective for me at the Plum Gym in the 80s, because we had the best with the best. Mark Breland, Mike McCallum, Thomas Hearns, all of those, Milton McCroy, everyone boxing, gold medal winners. And you adjust to your level of competition. So I think that's been a great asset. And if you can get a guy like that, you don't need anyone else.
Good point. Boutet is an unbeaten fighter, albeit with some assistance from a referee who seemed a little reluctant to start the 10 count when Librado Andrade knocked Boutet down at the end of their first fight. Their rematch is coming up on HBO. So Johnson is in the ring, and now here comes Connecticut's Chad Dawson, and he's hoping for a local hero type reception as he enters the arena. 5 of the last 7 fights have gone the distance. At some point, a fighter at age 27, kingpin of a division as Dawson features himself, he has to provide some entertainment, which in most cases, Max, means knockouts.
Yeah, you know, sometimes a guy can come along and just dominate everybody, and by establishing himself as the best, even without the knockouts, all roads lead to him. Maybe Chad Dawson's going to have to take that approach, because against the elite of the division, he has managed to win, but not even really to dominate the entire fight. Here, let's see if he can sustain the dominance late in the fight.
And now let's throw it up to Mark Lichtenfeld for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the XL Center here in Hartford, Connecticut, where all of tonight's bouts are under the authority and supervision of the Connecticut Department of Public Safety, Commissioner John A. Danaher III. Boxing administrator in charge of ringside is Sergeant Michael Castriva. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event of the evening. 12 rounds of boxing for the vacant WBC Interim and the IBO Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. Brought to you by Gary Shaw Productions in association with DeBella Entertainment and Tecate. Your judges for this contest, Glenn Feldman, Dwayne Ford, and Michael Pernick. Your referee in charge of the action is Michael Ortega. And now, ladies and gentlemen, introducing to you first, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing the yellow with white, He weighs in at 173 and 1/2 pounds with a record of 49 wins, 12 defeats, 2 draws, 33 wins by way of knockout. From Miami, Florida, the former 2-time light heavyweight champion of the world, Glen, the Road Warrior Johnson. And his opponent fighting out of the red corner, wearing the black with orange. He weighed in at 175 pounds, undefeated in 29 pro fights, 28 victories, no defeats, 1 no contest, 17 wins coming by way of knockout. From New Haven, Connecticut, the reigning and defending IBO light heavyweight champion of the world, Chad Dawson!
Stay right here. Stay right here.
All right, gentlemen, you were given your instructions in the dressing room. I want a good, clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Obey my commands at all times. Touch them up and good luck to both of you.
Glen Johnson, 40 years old, but still pretty damn good. Chad Dawson, in the middle of his ostensible prime, he's been pretty damn good so far. But the boxing world wants to know, can he be a little better than that?
Referee Michael Ortega seems pretty much to be the #1 guy in Connecticut. Although we've also seen Steve Smoker and Richard Flaherty and various other pretty good referees up here. Round 1 begins with Dawson circling and jabbing, and Johnson firing a right hand over the top. Johnson's trademark aggression on display from the beginning. In the first couple of rounds in Florida, Chad Dawson threw more than 100 punches in each of those 2 rounds. It appears to me already that he wants to conserve more energy in the early rounds here to make that point about going the distance.
He's placing his punches very accurate. He's not wasting any punches. And at this stage, his punches are a little bit crispier than Johnson's punches are.
Yeah, with Chad Dawson, it's always been a question. Does he waste too much sort of nervous energy early in the fight? Is that why he fades late? Is there some kind of a psychological issue he has late in the fight? Does he just take his foot off the gas? But here he seems to be fighting very relaxed.
He's fighting more like a power fighter tonight.
But Johnson, I always look at the feet, you know. I'm looking at Johnson's feet, especially with an older fighter, when he misses a punch or something, how does he maintain his balance? And if he misses a punch completely with Dawson, he's really out of position. But as long as Dawson is at blocking the punch, he's okay. But if he lets Johnson miss completely, he'll get all out of position.
Dawson eats a right hand from Johnson, doesn't fire back. There's going to be quite a contrast between Chad Dawson's punch output in this round and what he did in the first round in Florida.
You know, that said, he's having a typical early rounds Chad Dawson performance in the sense that he's dominating the fight. It's still early.
Accurate. He's landing his jab.
He's looking very sharp, very accurate with his punches.
And has begun to open up a little bit more in the last 30 seconds, throwing more punches, taking over just a little more.
The question is, as this fight wears on and Glen Johnson continues to apply that kind of pressure, is Chad Dawson is he good enough to sustain this level of dominance? He hasn't thus far in his career against this level opponent.
I think he's fighting the most brilliant round I've seen him fight, in the sense that he's showing real wisdom and command in there.
And I think he's mentally in his mind fully aware that that's his weakness, and he's going to be prepared to go down the stretch looking strong in this fight.
Good left hand in there by Dawson. He fires it again. This is a typical effort by Glen Johnson, but a commanding first round by a very in control Chad Dawson.
Good work, baby. What I need is more jabs. I need more double and triple jabs, side to side with the head movement. And keep stepping to your right. All right, chin down. That's all you got to do. Keep stepping, jab over his jab. That's all you got to do. Keep stepping around, that's all. Hands up, all right? When you stop moving, slip and slide, slip and slide. Don't let your head stand in the middle. Just keep going.
A little bit. Just make sure you out-jab him. Doing good, kid. Don't let him slide out. All right? Go to the body, then go to the head. Doing good, baby, doing good. Just keep the jab on him. Don't let him out-jab us. You got to outwork him, Glenn. Outwork him.
After throwing more than 100 punches in each of the first 2 rounds in their first fight in Florida 19 months ago, Chad Dawson was 22 out of 65 in round 1 here. A much more measured output. Glen Johnson, 14 out of 56. So Dawson, with the late burst, wound up throwing more punches than Johnson in the round. Dawson, 13 out of 50 jabs, and that's a good way to establish the jab. Throw 50 up.
Johnson is having problems getting into the fight. He's aggressive, but he's not able to get in as easy as he thought. And at this stage here, laying out strategy, I would say Dawson's strategy is working better for him than Johnson's is.
Dawson's just standing back and hitting Johnson on the way in, picking him off.
And he's looking very good. And that left hand of Dawson is something that Johnson better be watching out for as he comes in.
You see Chad Dawson, who's been criticized for not scoring more knockouts against elite opposition. He clearly has enough power to make a guy like Glen Johnson, very tough with a tough beard, respect his power and not just try to bum rush him. And maybe that's why people would like to see the knockouts, because it's not as though he can't punch at all, Chad Dawson.
Hey, Glen Johnson has a tremendous chin. So
yes,
it's purely speculative to talk about the possibility of knocking him out. But if Dawson were able to do it, what a feather it would be in his cap.
Sure.
This is a better round for Johnson. Even though he hasn't landed, it seems like he's getting a little bit closer in terms of landing his punches. He's not punching as far away as he was earlier.
Well, the other question as this fight wears on is Chad Dawson's, thus far in his career, his inability to sustain his dominance early a result of his opponent adjusting at this level and then he not being able to adjust to the adjustment later in the
Solid
fight.
left hand by Dawson as Johnson left himself open after the right.
He's got to be watching out very careful for Dawson's left hand. The left hand is a very good punch for him tonight. Seems like he has his timing very good. There it is again. Yeah. So far, that's been the signature punch in the fight between the two fighters.
More power on it, or at least so it seems, and has been the case in his previous outings.
But he's going to have to be doing it for quite a while in there with Johnson.
Yep. Lands the left again, though. Johnson really just pawing with his jab there. Dawson's waiting for him to throw the right so that he can counter with the left again. And suddenly, Johnson is more reluctant to throw his right hand after the 3 good left Dawson's already landed in the round. A flurry of punches from Dawson, a good right hook to finish that exchange. So he chose the right hook to go with the left cross.
Such a big difference in the hand speed.
There's the Dawson family. Wife Crystal, sons Prince, age 6, Chance, age 2, Tiger, less than 1 year, on grandma's lap. And as we told you, Dawson's big thrill is to hang out with his sons, maybe play a little pickup basketball.
Good.
You won't find him in nightclubs,
Keep what
strip
you're doing,
clubs,
going
or out
to
on the
your
street.
right, pump with a jab. Once in a while, you can bring that uppercut underneath and come back with the right hook and keep stepping around. That's all you got to do. Legs is gone. He can't keep up with your speed. Double and triple.
All right, baby, that's it. Hit him, and then make sure you get in there. Listen, if you want to reach him with the jab, you got to make sure you're outside of his right hand, so you can catch him with the jab. When your toe is touching his toe,
go. Seconds out. Let's go. Come on.
Third round begins with 6 Dawson jabs. 7, 8, 9. Johnson hurls forward with a right hand. That's a sort of a change of pace jab there, Emmanuel.
Yes. You know, it's funny. No one has landed too many really clean blows. And Johnson definitely haven't, but he's putting a lot of pressure still and picking up the tempo on Dawson. But Dawson still seems to be more the accurate puncher.
Johnson's also made an adjustment. He seems to be more conscious of Dawson's straight left hand, and he's trying to pick it off with his right glove.
Yes, as I'm saying, nobody's really landing many clean blows.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if he's going to use his right hand to try to pick off Dawson's left, he's going to be throwing and landing fewer right-hand punches. And Glen Johnson needs to use his right hand aggressively to have a chance in the fight. He's not going to win it with his left hand.
No, and if he kind of applies the sort of psychological pressure that he can apply just by walking Chad down and continuing to walk him down, he'll be losing rounds along the way and will need something dramatic to win late.
Another good combination by Dawson. The hand speed advantage visible there.
Yep.
And that's Chad Dawson at his best, turning his opponent, not running away, standing in the pocket and countering.
Landing a 4-punch combination and stepping away. Johnson stalking relentlessly, bearing down. As Emmanuel says, creating that psychological pressure.
He's put a lot of pressure, even though Dawson, I think, may be landing the cleaner blows possibly. But it's so, and Johnson hasn't landed that many clean blows, but he's still creating a lot of pressure. And Dawson is having to fight at a maybe faster pace than he maybe wanted to.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if he threw more than 100 punches in each of the first 2 rounds down in Florida and didn't exactly drop off the diving board after that, he was fighting at a faster pace there.
Good point.
Give me the bucket.
In November 2001, Chris
Come on,
Canales went from living the Texas high school dream to potentially spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. See how Chris and his dad are helping raise money and offer emotional support to other high school athletes who have suffered spinal cord injuries on the next Real Sports, Tuesday, November 24th. On December 8th, it's the turn of Joe Buck Live, another hour of live conversation with the biggest names on the most interesting topics in sports.
When you see him around the ropes, you got to jump him, get in low, and go to the body. He can run all day unless we take his legs away. The only way.
All right? That's all we need. Jab all day long. Here we go. Come on, here.
Punches in front, all right? Get him back here. Let's go. Come on.
Power shots in round 3 by CompuBox count. Dawson 18 out of 29 to 8 landed power shots for Johnson. Remember, a power shot is anything other than a jab. Harold, how do you have it so far?
Okay, Jim. 3 rounds to nothing. 30 to 27. Bad Chad Dawson. You know, Jim, you said something in the first round that's the key to the whole fight. You said Glen Johnson is pouring with the left jab, and that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. There's no snap to that left jab at all. He shuffles forward constantly and walks into great shots because he's a one-handed fighter. All he's doing is throwing that right hand, but he's walking into right jabs, walking into straight left hands, and Dawson's dominating. 3-0, Dawson.
Chad showed real flashes of brilliance at the end of the last round.
I agree. Dawson says he was a high school basketball star, but that his grades weren't good enough for him to go forward into college basketball, and that's the point at which he committed to boxing.
And you can see he has the kind of athleticism we don't see from a lot of fighters.
No, he's fighting a very, very good fight. His coordination, his timing is good. And you know what may be a surprise going down the stretch, Johnson may get tired himself. Because he's still an older man, and it seems like Dawson is biding his time, relaxed. Even though he's winning the fight, he's not overexerting himself that much.
Had it not been for Chad Dawson's history in fights like this, including the one against Glen Johnson and the fight against Adam Mick, the cruiserweight champ who just went up and beat up Andrew Galata, where he was doing a semblance of this early and then faded late, it's the kind of fight where you would think the old guy would wear down.
Yeah, despite his wins over Eric Harding, and he got up off the canvas to beat him, and 2 wins over Antonio Tarver, the previous win over Johnson. I personally think his most impressive win is against Tomas Adamek, former cruiserweight champ, who is a mean, tough, hard guy, and Dawson beat him clearly.
That win looks better every day.
Dawson averaged 48 jabs thrown per round in the first 3 rounds. He's not slacking off. Good left hand to the body.
The beautiful coordination of Dawson, where he can punch and get in and out sometimes before Johnson can even return a punch, and then he can come back in with another punch, is really the epitome of a really coordinated athlete or boxer.
I don't think I've ever seen Glen Johnson look this confused.
Nope.
Totally outclassed.
Totally outclassed.
You're gonna have to take chances.
They got us for nothing?
They got them for nothing. They got him for nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got him for nothing. No. It's 4-0 for him. They got 4 rounds on us. We're down 4.
You got 4?
Yeah, we're down 4. He won 4.
How are we going to win 4?
Glenn, they want to give it to him. You got to go after him. You got to hurt him.
The game is over. Give me the water. Come on. The game is over, champ. Don't get careless in there. I don't want you to get careless, all right? Stand up.
Glen Johnson said to us yesterday that he believes he probably needs a knockout to beat Chad Dawson here in Connecticut. Nevertheless, he seemed surprised there when his corner told him that it appeared he'd lost the first 4 rounds to Chad Dawson, or at least that the first 4 rounds would likely be scored against him. If Johnson is to open up and take more chances trying to get a knockout, Emmanuel, it appears to me what that's most likely to do is to facilitate the greater possibility of Dawson getting a knockout.
Because Dawson has a much faster, crisper hands, and if anything, he would end up catching Johnson in exchange, because he's much more accurate and great balance and position at all times. And it's good that the corner told Johnson, because most boxers always feel they're winning unless you tell them. And very few corners tell them what the score is. They just say you throw a jab or put more pressure on. But I think it was very wise of them to tell him that.
And it's a mark of the kind of blind faith that fighters have to do what they do, that Johnson actually seems surprised to hear that he's losing.
Johnson said he thinks he needs a knockout in Connecticut. If this continues, it could be fought on the moon. He would need a knockout because he's losing every round decisively.
Quick hands there for Dawson. Steps away again. Now, this is what fans don't want to see Chad Dawson do.
Well, I give Johnson credit. When he was told that he was losing the fight, you did see it create some anxiety in him, where a lot of guys don't do anything different. He hasn't landed any clean punches still, but he's putting a lot more pressure and showing a lot more effort.
Right, and he's getting Dawson to go away from what Dawson has done so well so far in the fight, which is to find those moments where he wants to stand his ground, fire the right jab many times, and then find a spot for the left to counter Johnson's right.
Yeah, he needs to change his nickname to Good Chad Johnson, because the first 4 rounds, that was the good Chad Johnson. This is the bad Chad Johnson. This is the guy who doesn't assert himself as thoroughly as he might.
This is the guy who lets his opponents back into the fight. He's giving Johnson a chance to win a round. Now he reverses the flow for a moment.
And there's the good Chad Johnson.
straight jabs, 7 straight jabs.
Not every fighter has the talent to do, even if they're skilled, has the talent to do what Chad Johnson is able to do right in the middle of the ring.
Chad Dawson.
Dawson, excuse me.
I do that myself. But because he has the talent to do it, he should do it all the time.
You want to see him apply that talent more consistently, and then knockout or not, there would be no confusion as to who's the dominant light heavyweight in the world.
Well, whether he wins this round or not, I'm very impressed with the way Johnson came out and has fought this round.
Because it's that point you've made about psychological pressure that made this round what it is.
Yes, and he's fighting with a lot more intensity this round.
He can do that all day, but you need to put the kind of pressure you just did on him. Start going to his body like you just did. Jab to the head and go to the body. You're doing good, but we need that kind of pressure, Glenn. That's what we need. All right?
CompuBox numbers so far
now.
in the fight.
Pick
Dawson landing 111, 40 more punches than Johnson has landed, throwing 48 more by CompuBox count. Let's take a look at a punch zone graphic to show us where Dawson is landing on Johnson's body. The 46-23, 82 punches around the head. Those are mostly jabs. Some of them are good left hands. And you see the 29 body punches, pretty much evenly distributed between the right and the left.
Let's go, seconds out, let's go. Let's go, seconds out. Box.
So let's see what happens in round 6 after Glen Johnson seemed to change the momentum of the fight slightly in round 5. And Dawson helped him to change it, backing away and circling. I have a hunch, Emmanuel, that Dawson thinks he's setting a trap for Johnson by circling and hiding his hands the way he is.
Well, that's the strategy that he and his trainer, Eddie Mustafa, are planning from the punch. Keep circling, pivoting, turning. He's doing exactly what they were planning to do. And I spoke to Eddie last night. Eddie said, we know we got a rough fight. You know, even though we said we wanted this fight, we really didn't want the fight. But it was what was offered, and the situation made us have to take it. So we got to try to get through with this and move on to other things. But we expect a tough fight.
And incidentally, here we are in the 6th round, right in the middle of the fight. And for the first time, Glen Johnson is landing crisp flush shots to Chad Dawson's head.
And suddenly, he's not just pawing with the jab anymore. For the first time in the fight, Johnson's actually trying to land his jab, and doing so sometimes. Good right hand to the body by Glen Johnson. Getting off a couple shots upstairs. Dawson seems to be toying with going into that shell that has sometimes haunted him. But in this round, he's been more willing to stand and fight and fire back than was the case in round 5. Right there, hard left hand by Chad Dawson.
Now there's an example of Dawson taking advantage of Johnson's desperation instead of succumbing to it.
And that's what I mean by the possibility of setting a trap.
But Dawson is still faster, younger, crispier puncher, greater all-around athlete. And he's always a big threat for him, that little short, straight left hand as I look at it, because he has his left hand in good position too. It's not on the side of his head, it's very right in the center of his face. It makes it easy for him to get that left hand straight through the middle.
Very Kronkish technique, Emmanuel.
Well, I love the hands right in the center. Your power hand.
You saw the CompuBox count of power punches in the round. If CompuBox scored fights, Dawson would be having zero problem at all here.
But you can never know what the effect of pressure may create in the later rounds of a fight.
Good comeback in the second half of that round for Chad Dawson.
I think he righted the ship in the second half of the round. And that one hard left hand that snapped his head back might have been his most effective punch so far. There's Dawson's son.
Drink that, Camp. There you go. The jab is the key. He's running into everything. But you lose your foot movement, you drop that quick right hand, come back with the right hook. You know what I'm saying? You're looking real good.
For nothing. We have an urgency.
This is sixth round.
This is sixth round.
Sixth round down.
We don't have any rounds. We don't have any rounds. We got to knock him out.
So you got to go after
Glenn,
this guy.
we need to put, Mackie, I got it. Glenn, we need to put the wear and tear on him. You know what I'm saying?
Here you see that straight left hand that Jim was mentioning right through the center. And that's been the signature punch so far tonight in the entire fight.
So we're halfway through the fight. And as you saw, Glen Johnson's record from this point forward is 14-12. Harold, how do you have it through 6?
Okay, Jim. 5 rounds to 1. 59-55. Bad Chad Dawson. I don't know, somehow or another, I just got generous in the 6th round because Glen Johnson landed some nice right hands early in the round, but no question he lost the last minute of the round. Be as it may, Chad Dawson easily won the first 5, even though in the 5th round he started to run, rather than stand there and nail Johnson as Johnson comes right in like he's doing right now. But anyway, Chad Dawson, based on clean punching, winning the fight 5 rounds to 1.
You know, I don't score, Harold, but I think if I wanted to give a round to Johnson, it would have been the 5th, and not the 6th. I think all 3 of us agree on that. But the bottom line is, I think we also agree that it's probably 5-1.
You always get 1 or 2 rounds of just comparative rounds you give to a guy just because compared to the other rounds he lost, he did better than he did in other ones, but he really didn't win that round.
Right.
So you always allow for that.
That's scoring politics, and it probably shouldn't happen, but it does.
But it does.
That was a good right hook to the body by Chad Dawson a moment ago. And I like the way that he has mixed the body shots in with his attack mostly upstairs in the fight.
Notice Chad Dawson's haircut. He's never had any kind of pattern cut into his hair before a fight before. And I think fighting in basically a hometown crowd, he's trying to do something to draw attention to himself. Not the most dynamic personality, not a big knockout puncher, not a big ticket seller. He's just a real good light heavyweight who so far is totally dominating another real good light heavyweight and doing it more impressively than he did the first time they fought.
Momentarily switched to a conventional stance, now switches back to southpaw. Dawson's promoter, Gary Shaw, is fond of saying that he believes Chad Dawson can become the best prize fighter in the world. He also says that he wants him at some point to move up to heavyweight. I have a hunch that the 2 goals are mutually exclusive. If he wants to be seen as the best fighter in the world, he probably shouldn't toy with the idea of going into the heavyweight division.
Worry about the light heavyweights first. There are challenges out there should he continue to do this tonight, including John Pascal, who you mentioned, Jim, earlier in the evening.
Watch your shoulder coming in, Chad. Watch your shoulder.
There are ticket sellers in the division. Lucien Boutet is a big ticket seller in Montreal. Friday night at 9:30 Eastern and Pacific. Don't miss the final installment of 24/7 Pacquiao Cotto. With the fight 7 days away, each fighter is putting the finishing touches on his preparation. And next Saturday night, catch the mega matchup live on HBO pay-per-view. Pound for pound #1 Manny Pacquiao against Puerto Rican star Miguel Cotto in what promises to be a throwback, all-action fight. I don't know about you guys, but I could not be more excited in anticipation of Pacquiao and Cotto. What a fight.
Any way you look at that, that's going to be a good fight. Almost impossible to be a bad fight.
You can't miss them uppercuts, baby. But I know what, you got to have your chin down, though. Chin down. Stand up.
Okay, so Boute's in the 168-pound weight class. That's correct. I'm wrong to feature him as a light heavyweight. He could conceivably be in this division at some
Earlier in
point.
the night, I said Kirkland was out for 2 years. It's 6 or 7 months, Jim. So
according to his manager,
yes,
Cameron Duncan,
yes,
right?
and others.
And earlier in the night, I said that Boute was a cruiserweight.
You mean we're not perfect?
We're all cleaned up now. Yes, but you're right. You know, movement between 168 and 175 pounds is, you know, wherever the money is where the fighters will go.
Well, apropos of that, Dawson, you know, while talking about possibly someday being a heavyweight, also says he would have no problem going down to fight at 168 if, in fact, an opportunity presented itself there.
Yeah, but all the weight division they have now, sometimes only 5 pounds, 7 pounds, 4 pounds between a weight division. Whereas in the old days, it was almost like middleweight and light heavyweight was 15 pounds different.
Well, and at the lower end of the scale, Manny Pacquiao is virtually destroying the concept of weight classes. He fights whoever he wants, wherever he wants.
And Chad Dawson's destroying Glen Johnson here.
Big time.
You know, when this fight was made, I thought it was the best fight that could be made for Chad Dawson at light heavyweight. And at that time, him saying that he could go down to super middleweight would make some sense. There are some names down there. But at this point, after Pascal upset Diancanu, and they're going to rematch soon, if Pascal wins especially, he's an exciting fighter. Tavares, Cloud, I mean, there have emerged some interesting, young, exciting fighters in the division. So for Dawson to make noise about doing anything other than cleaning up the division is not what you want to hear from the guy who's supposedly the dominant light heavyweight in the world. Once upon a time, guys like Marvin Hagler sat at a division, cleaned it out, and waited for the smaller guys to move up.
Once upon a time.
Incidentally, Jim, the graphic you showed earlier showed that Dawson was throwing some real shots to the body, and they've been hard shots. You saw an example of a couple moments ago.
Yeah, there's no such thing as an easy fight against a guy like Glen Johnson. But to the degree that this could have been easy for Dawson, he's made it that way. He has fought intelligently. He's been aggressive when he wanted to be. He's really only had one off round.
I think it's fought a very good fight. You know, but Johnson is never going to be an easy fight for anybody. But at least Dawson is placing his punches. He's not overextending and burning himself out. And after he lands a few punches, he gets away, takes a break, lands good flurries of punches, just enough to win the rounds, and then gets away.
And thus far, in those moments where it seemed, okay, now it's where Chad Dawson gets a little sloppy and does not assert his dominance the same way, he's avoided that. He's turned that tide back and remained dominant.
Glen Johnson's made a career out of not looking his age. This is the closest he's looked to being an old fighter.
I'm sitting here looking.
Let's go with the bucket. All right, good work. Good work. And listen, you're doing good, but try touching him up, all right? Don't try to land heavy shots. Touch him up so you can line him up, all right? Because he's seeing everything coming. Try to put a couple of shots, touching him up, and then land the shot. But listen, man, you got to get closer. You got to move. You got to move faster going forward than he's moving going back. You feel me?
Shorten them up, elbows in. All right? Bend your legs, but I want the chin down and keep stepping around. Good jab. Deep breath.
Seconds out, let's go. Hey, wipe that corner down.
Well, you heard Orlando Cuellar saying to Glen Johnson, you've got to move forward faster than he's moving backward. The danger comes at the moment when Dawson chooses to plant his feet and fire a left hand, if Johnson's going to follow that mantra. Two good body shots by Chad Dawson.
And as soon as he finished up, Johnson starts putting the pressure, running right back at him, never standing in one spot. And you know, letting the guy punch and move away at his own tempo. He's forcing him to move fast.
So often you'll see a fight against a longer, rangier guy fighting on the outside like Dawson and a squatter pressure fighter like Johnson. And the thought is the pressure fighter has to work that body. But no one likes it in the body. And Chad Dawson is exploiting Johnson's when Johnson's giving it to him.
Dawson with a looping uppercut. Johnson just leaning in, firing to Dawson's body, but one punch at a time.
It's a dangerous punch against the guy with a good left hook.
Solid shots by Dawson.
But also, I think Johnson caught a good right hand that we couldn't see from right in line. I thought Johnson landed a good right hand, kind of right hook like.
Dawson blocking our view with his back.
Right, that's what I.
I get a hunch that somewhere in the last couple of rounds, Max, Dawson decided, let's focus on the body for a while.
You know, he also, for a guy who's shown that his chin can be dented, he's tasted the canvas and gotten up and won. He's been rocked late in the fight, like, for instance, against Glen Johnson in their first fight. He's not a scary fighter in boxing parlance. He doesn't fight. In boxing parlance, that means you fight as though you're scared. He doesn't run away. And one of the reasons his opponents have come back late in fights is that he'll mix it up.
You're watching Chad Dawson in the black trunks against Glen Johnson in the yellow and white in the light heavyweight division.
What a move and a pivot and threw off a combination. Real good stuff by Chad in the middle of the ring.
Like a basketball player.
Yep.
Our doubleheader began with a fight in the 154-pound weight class between Mexico's Alfredo Angulo and Bridgeport, Pennsylvania's Harry Joe Yorgi.
Obey my commands at all times. First command
Angulo
is
was coming off
come out fighting when the bell rings.
a victory which followed the first loss of his career earlier this year against Kermit Cintron. Angulo's on a mission to prove that the loss does not define him in any way as a fighter. And Yorgi was too brave and too wide open in the fight. It became a festival of right hands by Alfredo Angulo. And in the third round, Angulo caught Yorgi, whose head was up, with a left hook. And Yorgi was out cold as Angulo tagged him with another right hand. And that was the end. A very impressive knockout at 103 of the third by Alfredo Angulo. And there he is live at ringside. Nickname El Perro, which in Spanish, of course, means the dog. He is compared by many to Antonio Margarito because of his straight-ahead style and his Mexican heritage. He's a tough guy who expects to become a star. And Max, as we go back to watching Dawson and Johnson, one more comment on Angulo. Well, I'll get back to Angulo. Let's first find out, Harold Letterman, how do you have the fight scored through 9 rounds?
Okay, Jim, 8 rounds to 1. 89-82. Bad Chad Dawson. You know, Jim, he's just out fighting Glen Johnson. I mean, it's amazing. When Chad Dawson stops and Glen opens up like this, Chad Dawson just stands there and out fights him. No clinches in this fight. Mike Ortega ought to give the money back. I mean, it's a really good fight, but it's all Chad Dawson. 8-1, bad Chad Dawson.
No, I think Ortega's actually working. I don't want him to give the money back. And I'm not sure that all 3 judges are going to see it as one-sidedly as you do, Harold, but we will see. As for Angulo, Max, you pointed this out before. Because of his pronounced one-dimensional style, it's a matchmaking question.
Sure, if you match Angulo with fighters who come at him, he doesn't have to go searching for them. He's a precise power puncher. He's calm under pressure. Very tough guy to beat if you try to beat him with a pressure fighter. But a guy who can move, and Kermit Cintron moved and gave him angles, is going to make problems for Angulo, as we've already seen.
Like, for instance, Sergio Martinez, whom we'll see against Paul Williams on December 5, is in the 154-pound weight class. In all likelihood, Angulo is never going to fight Sergio Martinez.
That would be a very bad matchup. Not only for Angulo, but for almost anyone. It's one of the reasons that the Paul Williams fight's so interesting with Sergio Martinez.
Indeed. The 2 most avoided fighters conceivably in the middleweight classes of boxing going against each other. What's happening here in this round, Emmanuel?
Well, it's the same pattern of all the rest of the fight. Johnson moving forward, putting pressure, but still the speed and explosiveness of Chad Johnson is too fast, too much for him.
Chad Dawson. Dawson had a belt, gave it up to take this fight. As we pointed out on the graphic at the beginning of the show, in this division, as in many others, the ticket-selling stars, the big identities, belong to fighters who don't have belts or don't care to fight for belts at this point.
I mean,
Another good body shot.
The belt that Dawson's really fighting for is the people's champ, right? Who's the guy who is recognized by boxing fans as the best fighter in the division? Zolt Erdai has a lineal claim. Calzaghe took the lineal claim Hopkins had and then retired. There are various well-known fighters like Roy Jones who's past his prime. But Chad Dawson, especially with this performance, is making an emphatic statement that he is the best fighter in the division.
So far, perhaps the best performance of Dawson's career.
Yes.
Nice and relaxed, nice and relaxed. Deep breath, champ. You don't want every round. I just don't want you to get careless, all right? Keep the good jab, keep the good foot movement, side to side, going out to your right. The good jab.
Uppercut's over too, Chad. You got it, that uppercut. You heard it 3 times.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Deep breath, champ. Good to go? All right. Drink that. Wow.
Right uppercut, come back with the left hook. Jab, right uppercut, left hook. And when you see him sliding by the ropes, man, you have to take chances. You got to run after him. All right, put the pressure, Glenn. We got 3 minutes of work. Give me 3 minutes.
Johnson's trainer, Orlando Cuellar, working hard in all of his 1-minute periods between rounds to try to keep Johnson properly oriented to what's going on in the fight. Harold Letterman gives the last round to Dawson, bringing it to 99-91 as we go to the 11th of a scheduled 12.
Remains to be seen, should Dawson go on to win this fight as he is winning it, what Glen Johnson has left in the tank in future fights. It may put this fight in a different perspective if he turns out to be at the end, or it may make this fight look even better if Glen Johnson goes on to score some good wins.
You know, I think Johnson is not looking all that bad. I just think that Chad Dawson is just really something special in terms of his natural talent, speed, and everything else. And with a lesser fighter, I think Johnson will be able to get to most of those guys in the fight.
But I think this could be the end of Johnson's hard luck run, to be totally honest with you. Joe Calzaghe blatantly ducked him. He didn't really get a lot of opportunities to follow up commensurate with his knockout of Roy Jones back in 2004. He sees himself as a guy who has never gotten proper respect. The 12 losses are 12 losses, and he's getting drubbed here by the key guy in the division.
Well, if Glen Johnson has something left, as Emmanuel says, if that turns out to be the case, this so far is the signature performance that Chad Dawson's been looking for, weathering some good body shots here on against the ropes. But he really hasn't had that performance, opening bell to closing bell, that you could point to and say, that's his best fight. As you mentioned, Jim, the Adamic fight, but Adamic did hurt him late in the fight, as good as Adamic turned out to be.
Adamic knocked him down.
But I think Dawson has proved a lot. He seems to be a really seasoned fighter now. Before he was a young, he seems to seem so polished, so poised, so relaxed.
Yeah, that's the point. This is a very professional show tonight.
That's it. It's a different fighter. Before it was a
totally
young
in control.
Yeah.
And therefore, his signature performance thus far, and maybe, just as we said at the top of the show, what Dawson in the boxing world has been looking from him. He is 27 years old. He should be in his absolute physical prime. He's now been seasoned against Adamic and Glen Johnson and Tarver twice. And maybe this is what we've all been waiting for.
There was a tiny bit of booing moments ago, perhaps from some in the crowd who want to see Dawson more aggressively try to finish with a knockout.
But Johnson is not that easy to hit clean. I mean, he's got a lot of punches landing him. If you look closer, he doesn't get hit that clean with his punches.
And even if he does, he's got an iron chin.
He's got a good chin anyway, but he deflects most of his punches with funny little movements. You don't hit him too clean. The crowd gets excited because of the blazing speed of Dawson's hands.
Last round. Listen. This is where I want you to be careful at. Okay? He's going to try to go crazy. Hands up. Let's get the jab going. Keep the jab going. You don't want every round. He's going to try to come.
A good 3 minutes. Go after him, Glenn. You got to go after him. You can't stop swinging. All right? Just watch out. Keep your hands up. Listen, when you're getting in, move the head. Get the head moving when you're going in. All right? Don't go in upright because he can keep you at bay with his punches. Go in on the slide, slipping and sliding side to side. And then you got to do it, kid. You got
no one jab. I don't want him to come over top of nothing. Double and triple. Here we go. I got it. Here. Hands up, son. It's going to work.
Open up his guard and fire the uppercut.
Go. Touch him up. Touch him up. Let's go. All right, box.
Dawson's trainer, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, then known as Eddie Gregory, fought in a very entertaining generation of light heavyweights back in the 1980s.
The early 80s, the golden era of light heavyweights in my lifetime.
Matthew Saad Muhammad, Dwight Muhammad Kawi,
Michael Spinks, Yaki Lopez.
Amazing group. Couple good body shots by Johnson. He certainly heard what Orlando Cuellar said about swinging away.
You know, you certainly understand Eddie Mustafa Muhammad's advice in the corner because he knew Johnson would be desperate. But you wonder if it got Chad Dawson away from what he was doing so well, which was keeping Glen Johnson at bay. By fighting more purely defensively, he actually gives Glen Johnson more chances. For instance, when he stood his ground moments ago in the middle of the ring, he stopped, like right there, Glen Johnson's forward progress.
Just hit Johnson twice with the left hand. Enough to momentarily stem Johnson's aggression. Now he goes back to circling. Crowd chanting, Dawson, Dawson, Dawson. He says, hey, I'm from New Haven. I'm not from Hartford. This isn't a hometown fight for me, but I do hope that Connecticut fans will come out to support me. Also, he wanted to wear into the ring the jersey of the University of Connecticut football player who was murdered after a game here in Connecticut a few weeks ago. Jasper Howard's jersey was apparently not available for Dawson to wear, but he did say that he fights the fight in honor of the fallen Husky football player.
Ricky Hatton's fans followed him halfway across the world and gave him a hometown advantage in Las Vegas, all the way from England. Chad Dawson should be able to create enough excitement to bring people from New Haven to Hartford.
Well, he's the best fighter that I've had probably since Marlon Starling, who was here tonight, you know.
And I think
they will start getting behind him a little bit more. But it's different. He trains in Las Vegas a lot with his trainer, Eddie Mustafa. He doesn't spend, like, I think Marlon Starling was strictly identified as Hartford.
And more performances like this, and he will create more interest.
Yeah, and this is a tough guy to look good against, too, in some way.
I thought he looked very good tonight.
Yes.
Well, when you've got 12 losses, as Glen Johnson has, you learn to celebrate at the end of every fight. This way you can always claim you were the winner. So Chad Dawson delivers an excellent performance. Harold Letterman gives the last round to Glen Johnson, bringing his final score to 118-110. We'll get the official scores of the three judges who hold the final verdict in their hands in just a moment. Let's take a look at who those judges are. Glenn Feldman, 36 title fights, based here in Connecticut. Had Miguel Cotto by 2 points over Shane Mosley in a very close fight that most ringside observers agreed Cotto had won. Dwayne Ford, 130 title fights, one of the veteran Nevada judges you've seen so many times. Had Juan Manuel Marquez losing to Manny Pacquiao by 3 points in their second fight. Michael Pernick, based in Florida, 47 title fights. Had the right score, at least in favor of the right fighter, in the Jermaine Taylor-Corey Spinks fight. Still waiting for the decision, as now Johnson, who by our lights lost 10 of 12 rounds, gets himself up on the ropes and holds his gloves up. This time booed, last time cheered. That was in Florida. This is in Connecticut. Yankee caps, about as popular as at any time in recent history here on the East Coast. And there's Alfredo Angulo laughing and having a good time. Both Angulo and Chad Dawson are promoted by Gary Shaw, and Gary Shaw awaits the result we're about to hear as we go to Mark Lichtenfeld for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of boxing, we go to the scorecards. Judges Dwayne Ford and Michael Pernick both see the bout 115-113. Glen Feldman sees it 117-111. For your winner, by unanimous decision, he is now the WBC interim and still IBO light heavyweight champion of the world, Bad Chad Dawson!
So unanimous decision for Dawson, as expected. Now 6 judges in 2 states have found him the winner over Glen Johnson. CompuBox numbers: Dawson landing 89 punches more, throwing 68 punches more, and landing at a higher connect percentage in terms of total punches. Power shots. We know that Dawson dominated the jab category. In power shots, he lands 56% of his power punches. So he was selective, he was effective, he was accurate. Johnson, not bad, 90 out of 259, but 35% is nowhere close to what Chad Dawson was able to accomplish in CompuBox's view. Let's take a look at punch zone to see where Dawson's punches landed on Glen Johnson, and vice versa. Punches landed on Dawson on the left side of the screen. You can see that most of them to the head, evenly distributed to the body below. Punches landed on Glen Johnson, 70 body shots instead of the 51 which Johnson landed, and 176 punches upstairs to only 116 for Johnson. That's why Dawson was the winner. That's why Max is standing by with Chad Dawson and his family.
Congratulations, Bad Chad Dawson. That was very, very good, Chad Dawson. Give us your thoughts.
I mean, I did what I said I was going to do. You know, the first fight, you know, it was a brawling fight. This fight, I didn't want to take it that way. I wanted to outbox and use my legs. I had youth on my side. I mean, I had every advantage. You know, it's all about me just using all the tools I have and applying it to this fight.
You're 27 years old now. You're seasoned against top opposition. Do you think it's a matter of simply coming into your prime?
Yeah, I mean, I try to get better every fight. I try to show something new. I know the last fight you guys were saying I lose steam after half of the fight. You know, I try to not let that happen this fight. I went in, outboxed him every round, used my jab, used my speed, my legs, and outclassed him.
It did seem in the 5th round, here it goes with Chad Dawson again. The other guy's coming on. He's not asserting himself as he does in the first half of the fight. And then you seem to consciously change that in the next round. Tell us what happened.
I think I heard you in the corner say that. No, I mean, really, honestly, I mean, I worked hard in the gym. That's what we worked on. You know, I sparred 4-minute rounds, 30-second rest in the gym. So this was nothing. I mean, 3 minutes, a minute rest, it was nothing. I worked hard, I bust my ass, and I got the victory.
Considering, as you can see, holding up one of your sons here, you're a family guy, not a lot of salacious details about your life outside the ring. Very straightforward kind of guy. What do you do to create excitement in the light heavyweight division?
Like I said before, you know, this chapter of my book is closed. The Glen Johnson, Antonio Tarver chapter is closed. Now I can move on, fight some new faces, and proclaim my spot at the top.
Before we go, ringside we had it much wider than 115, 113 scorecards. I thought 117, 110 made more, or 111 made more sense. What was your feeling about where you were in the fight?
I mean, I know I was ahead the whole fight. You know, I used my legs, made him miss. I made him miss shot at the shot. You know, his big right hand wasn't there tonight. I made him miss. He was too slow. I seen everything. I mean, and that's what we trained for in the gym. You know, we had sparring partners that emulated him down to the T. Therefore, all I had to do was apply it in this fight, and everything came out.
I'll add one more question, Chad. You mentioned some fresh faces. At 175 pounds now, when this fight was made, they weren't there. But since then, if Pascal wins his rematch, he's an exciting fighter right north of the border. Tavares Cloud, some others. Who would you like to fight next if you had your druthers?
If I had my wish to fight one fight, Bernard Hopkins. That's the guy. I mean, he's been rated number two for number one for like a year and a half now. You know, I've been number two for almost 2 years. It's time for him to get off.
And if you can't get a fight with one of the aging legends, would you stay at light heavyweight and fight someone like the winner of Pascal?
Definitely the Pascal fight. Definitely that. I mean, he's a great fighter, exciting fighter, you know, and I think me and him make for a good fight.
Congratulations, Chad. Excellent performance. Jim?
Chad Dawson moves to 28-0.